The GallowgateShots podcast is sponsored by Tyre Spot, the North East's leading tyre supplier with branches across the region. Tyre Spot don't just do tyres, they cover everything from servicing to wheel alignment. They can handle every aspect of your car's maintenance. For more information, visit tyrespot.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the GallowgateShots podcast and YouTube channel. We are here with a New Year's Eve match reaction the day after Newcastle United make the trip to Old Trafford and, as Daryl wanted to happen, punished them. I am your host, Kris, joined by Daryl and Iain today. We're going to make this one pretty brief because, as you can probably hear and tell, I am loaded with the dreaded Christmas/New Year's flu. I think Dasmo's suffering as well. But yeah, we're going to dive into it, boys, because we couldn't let this opportunity to go by. And what a result. I think we're all excited going into this game and thinking we can do this. We've got a really good chance of really taking it to Man United on home turf there as well. And thinking if we can't do it now, there's probably not going to be a better chance to do it. I got the other side of it as well, saying we don't have a great record at Old Trafford, and we can't get too ahead of ourselves. But the first 19 minutes, in fact, the first half an hour of that game, Daryl, and we absolutely smashed them. They couldn't cope with the high press, and we just wanted that result. We wanted every challenge, we wanted every throw, we wanted every touch of the ball 10 times more than what they did, and you could see that from, I would say, the first half, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, God, we made them look like a League One or League Two side at times in that first half an hour. I mean, they were just all over the place. I think when we saw the lineups come out and we saw that the midfield that they were putting out there was Casemiro and Eriksen, I mean, I think I've seen more pace in a snail. Never mind the pair of them two.
I see more pace in Dan Burn than them two.
Well,
Mate,
exactly.
that's saying something.
Absolutely, and I'd say something when Dan Burn can outrun a Man United midfield. But we just battered them, like you say, absolutely tore them to shreds. I was, what it is? We got about 2 minutes into the game. It was just before the first goal, and I looked at the clock and I thought, God, we've already gone 2 or 3 minutes and we haven't scored yet. After recent weeks, I think, God, I hope it's not going to be one it actually hit me that early on. I was like, and then obviously next minute Isaac comes in and gets a header and calmness restored, and we just went on to just, what it is? I know it was only 2-0, and I think we can all agree that it should have been more. It should have been a lot more, even at half time. Yeah. But we didn't have to, because they weren't putting a glove on us. They were terrible.
No, you're right in that. I think just to go back a little bit, what we mentioned there, Iain, just when you're looking at the midfield, you can see the last few weeks that our midfield three are dominating that midfield area. Causal on that's probably outside the midfield area as well. Going forward and come back with Seaton, who's like an absolute magnet with the ball at the minute. Even when we're dispossessed, he's there ready to collect the ball and steal it back off the opposition and get the movement started again. Same with Bruno. Bruno find himself higher up the field over the last handful of games. And like Daryl said, as soon as you see the likes of Casemiro in midfield and Eriksen, you're thinking, we are dominating this without even trying. Honestly, wouldn't even have to start with first gear to control that midfield. And I think everybody saw it coming a mile off. Very, very strange to start those two aging midfielders in a midfield against a Newcastle United trio of midfield with Joe Linton in there as well, that are absolutely battering every single team that they come up against in the last few games there. I know obviously opposition has been a bit less of a challenge forward of recent weeks, but strange one. It is a strange. I know they don't have a lot of options there, Iain, but you could just see it coming all day long, couldn't you? Before balls even being kicked.
Yeah, literally when the team sheets got released, you thought it's our chance to absolutely dominate the game from midfield. It's nice to see that Howe's finally worked out how to fit Tonali and Joe Linton and Bruno in the same midfield and get results, because whatever he's coaching them on in the specific roles and the finer details of how they're playing, sometimes sort of swap between being a 6 and 8 between themselves. It's like you say, it's just sheer dominance. And I think it might have been Carragher was
on something on
Yeah.
beforehand, didn't it, about the two positions?
I think it was Tonali playing in an 8 and Tonali playing in a 6. And I think Carragher touched on how Newcastle fans could see how Longstaff was more suited for the role. But to a degree, up until a certain point, he was. The stats showed it that he was better in the 6. But now that you've got Tonali in there, who's, let's face it, much better technical player. And I say this time and time again, and I think I said it after the Villa game. He's so athletic, but to look at him, you wouldn't think he can get around the pitch very similar to how Joe Willock can, but he's a bit more sort of stocky and a bit more well built than Joe Willock. But when the that midfield came out, you just thought this is ours for the taking, and it was like Daryl said, it was the first sort of 5-10 minutes. They looked like a League One side. They looked completely shot of confidence. When they weren't winning the ball back, they were just giving it straight back to us. Credit to where it's due as well. We were winning the ball back very well. We were recycling play very well.
Quickly as well.
Really
so quickly.
I think it might have been Decker said yesterday on the watch along. You looked at times where in that little run where we've sort of, I mean, I was questioning whether Howe had taken us as far as we could, but like you say, he's back to where he was with that intensity as our identity. When you were looking at where they were pressing, you had Isak pressing, then you had Gordon, then you had Lewis Hall, and that's right up sort of their 18-yard box, and then Dan Burn halfway inside their half. So the aggression, the intensity from not just the midfield, but like you say, the forward line and even your centre halves as well was really, really good to see. And like you say, that they didn't get anywhere near us in the first half an hour, first 45 minutes.
I think we're going to have to focus a little bit on that left-hand side, Dasmo as well, because the partnership that Hall and Gordon are creating between themselves is unbelievable. It really is. And you know Gordon was going to have the time of his life last night. He done a great little touch, first touch, and he takes around the defender. Unbelievable touch it was. But Hall, obviously, we mentioned Hall. He just keeps on getting better every single week that we see him. Still a young lad, and he puts in a great ball in the box. He's like, I know there's a bit of a deflection on there, which spins it a little bit in between. Well, it's banging between Maguire and Martinez, I want to say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
two out the back, and Isak's just got all the time in the world there. It's a great header, another header for Isak, and once again on the score sheet. And I think going forward, I think it's looking set for December Player of the Month for Isak, because he's got a handful of assists and God knows how many goals in that period as well. He just can't stop scoring. He gets another one not so long afterwards as well, where he absolutely rifles it in the top corner, which he's an absolute distance offside. Like, he's still kicking off, but he's a distance offside. But you knew we're scoring the first 4 minutes of the game, and you're thinking, right, that's fine, right? Like, we are going to dominate this from now on. They're just going to crumble. And just like we've seen the last few weeks, as soon as we get that early goal, teams have to come out and play against it. And when they have to do that, when we're at our game and we've got the high press in there, we're very, very hard to play against, really hard. Not long after that, then obviously Joe Linton, just was it like 9 minutes later or something daft like that? It's not too long later. Joe Linton's on the end of a header as well, and in there as well. And VR tried the best to rule that one out. They were looking at it for a little while, trying the hardest. But Dasmo, as soon as that second went in, and that's not even mentioning that little in-between period of 10 odd minutes thereabouts, that it's just complete dominance. Man United didn't even lay a glove on. We couldn't even get the ball off her at times, and we were just absolutely peltering their goal.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the relationship on that left-hand side now, and I mean, God, just how much of a pro does Lewis Hall look? We saw glimpses of it at the end of last season, and he's just had a full summer and a full pre-season with Eddie, and he's coming to this season, and he's started well, and it's just, it's just snowballing from there. And I'll be honest, I was watching a clip this morning about Carragher and Neville naming their team of the season so far, and I'll tell you what, it's absolutely criminal that Lewis Hall isn't the first choice right back for that team of the season so far, because he's played every game, and he's been absolutely superb, and he's grown into that role this season. And there was
Who did they go for left back?
I think honestly, right? Neville went for Vardiol for whatever reason in one of the worst
Right.
defenses in the league, and Carragher went for what's the lad from Fulham called?
Robinson.
Anthony Robinson. Now Carragher said his choice was because Robinson's had 7 assists this season, and I couldn't even tell you what Neville's opinion was for Gvardiol because I didn't think it was even worthy an argument to try and put him in. But yeah, that relationship that's developing on that side, and, you mentioned there with Gordon, he tucks in, and this was especially evident last night because it led to the first goal. Was Gordon tucks in and Lewis Hall just finds himself in acres on that side, and because he can put a decent delivery in, yes, it had a deflection, but he was putting pretty decent deliveries in all night, and he's just in that space, and he's got the space and the time. He can just whip a ball in onto a 50 pence piece, and like I said, leads to that first goal. And they worked so well in the press as well. I think it helped because of the way Man United were playing, because they had the 2 wing backs, and when they were pushing up, there was just acres of space in behind them. And you saw it on the other side as well with Murphy and Bruno at times down that side, and Trippier as well. And that period in between, I mean, there was another chance in there for Joe Linton who blasted one over. I think Gordon had one just over as well.
Isaac as well.
Yeah, Isaac had that 1-on-1.
Rather than just Jacob Murphy just tried to dink it.
Yeah,
strange.
Shall I tell you who he's reminded us of with his one-on-ones? Cisse, where you give him all the time in the world to think, and he just gets caught up in his own mind, but instinctually one of the best finishers we've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I would probably go beyond that first half now and just go a little bit further, because I think the game changed when when Amarin took off Xerxes and he brought on Manu, and the midfield dynamic changed a little bit.
Early changed Dasmo because he knew we were absolutely dominating that, and he had to change something. I felt a bit sorry, obviously, because you never want to be taken off in the first half of a game, but he's had to sacrifice somebody there.
Yeah, and it did change the game slightly, and it did give Man United a bit more of a foothold in midfield, but the game was gone by that point. There was no way they were getting back in. Even when we gifted them a couple of chances, and they were never looking like they were going to get in the game again.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's without even mentioning Tonali smashing off the post as well. That 3-0 up. It's not a great finish from Tonali. Keeper is closing him down. He's got to think fast, but it's great play, and that's what we saw loads last night. Just creating endless opportunities, and that I'm saying the midfield, but not just the midfield. Everybody just working it. And Tonali, do you know what it is? I can't speak, and I don't have enough words to describe my love for Tonali at the minute, because he seems to be starting everything. He wins the ball and he just passes and moves constantly. He's not pissing about on the ball. He's just moving and go. How fast can we get this ball up the field?
There's some really top quality one-touch passing going on in that midfield, and he's the catalyst for the whole lot. Linking up really well with Bruno. Isaac, as you mentioned, he had some good little knock-ins in there, and even with Joe Linton, they can just ping it around in the midfield, and then teams just don't have a clue.
Special mention as well, Ian, for Kieran Trippier, who tried to score from a corner once again against Man United's goalkeeper. He tried his hardest and almost came off. But
there was 2 in a row, wasn't there? Where the first one he went front post, and the keeper punched it, and then. But yeah, I mean that was one of the things.
The piss at that point.
Yeah, that was one of the things they focused on, was how worrisome they are from set pieces. And in recent form, sort of the last month or two, we've worked set pieces quite well.
Experimented, haven't we?
Yeah, so why not? But yeah, that first half, like you have said, that's where the game was won. They did bring on Manu. It did give them sort of a little bit more structure in midfield. It stopped, and I noticed as well, stopped that diagonal ball to what Dasmo mentioned, where Hall was in acres every time. It sort of shored up that a little bit, but like you say, that first half hour, the first half, we blew them away. And you weren't. There was a couple of touchy moments in the second half where passes were a little bit short, but you never really felt that the game was going to run away from, or they were going to get back in the game at all. Even just to mention, when Daryl was on about there, the midfield popping it around, even the back 4, and I don't know whether that goes from having Dubravka in goal, because although I think Pope's probably the better goalkeeper out of the two, with his feet, Dubravka's much more comfortable, much more confident. I think that
Head and
instills a
shoulders
little bit
above
of,
with his feet.
and I think it instills confidence in the back four that we can ping a pass in here and he'll deal with it fine, and we'll keep the ball, it'll not go out. And seen that a few times in the second half, where I was thinking if that ball was pinged to Nick Pope, I'd be like, my heart would be in my mouth. But it was just an all-round really good team performance. And then, as I say, the second half, we didn't really have to get out of first or second gear, to be honest.
Yeah, well, letting them have a lot of the ball in the second half, because you know for fine well that I think the game ended with them not having a single shot on target. That's how comfortable we were. Yes, they had a couple of shots, a couple of them that didn't test Dubravka at all. Hence why there was no shots on target. There was one towards the end of the first half where it's Hyland puts in it so close, it is really close. There's that one later on in the game where Fabian Shaw, I don't know what he's doing. He just tries to play it out and it just lands straight there, and you think, oh, fuck me.
Oh, and then it goes to Casemiro.
It goes to Casemiro. All the players you want it to land to, it's going to be Casemiro from a Newcastle point of view, because he stunk the place out last night. Absolutely rotten. I'm surprised he hasn't been sacked as well this morning. But it's just like you said, when we're going at teams, and you know for fine well we couldn't keep up that performance that we did in the first half an hour for the full game. You just categorically can't do it because players will be dropping left, right, and centre. But to go 2-0 up, and you're thinking there and then, game over, absolute game over, and all we need to do now is just not even control the game, just calm it down a little bit, and just deal with what we need to do, because they just weren't up for it last night, like not at all.
You know what it is? That's a nod to how we've come along in our game management as well, because we, like you say, we didn't have to do a lot in that second half. We were able to let them have the ball, knowing fine well that we had the skill to cut out anything that they were trying to do as soon as it hit the final third. And that's a good way to preserve our energy. We mentioned that a couple of times in the WhatsApp group last night about what that was, why we were doing it. And again, that's better for the players as well, because it gives them that confidence that they can kill a game off and then just see it out.
We're going to have to mention as well, the one downside last night, and this was the only downside to last night, is Fabian picking up the yellow card. He had done a couple before that you could see it was coming, and I think it's Hyland that he pulls down and he just grabs a hold of him. He doesn't wrestle him to the ground, but you know for fine well it's a yellow card all day long. Fabian's still kicking off about it at full time. He's not happy about it, but that's him missing the Spurs game, and he's also missing the not linked, but he's also missing the Arsenal first leg.
That's right,
as well. So there's two games that Fabian's missing, and you know what it is? We're at this point again where you're just looking at pound for pound. Fabian Shaw is probably one of the best signings Newcastle United have ever made. Like he's phenomenal. And we mentioned this a little bit on the watch along last night. Probably one of the most underrated players, defenders especially, that the Premier League has seen. He just doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Really doesn't. Especially longevity that he's had in the Premier League now as well. He's unbelievable. Yes, he had a bit of a dodgy spell for one season, but everybody did back on that Bruce and things like that. But honestly, I love him a bit. I absolutely love him.
It's meant, what it is? It's really mental to think that he's actually been here for like 7 years. And when Rafa signed him, and he became part of what we were playing at the time was a back three, and you had Lascelles in the middle, you had Cher on the right hand side, and you had Lejeune on the left, and that threw out John Joe Shelby from that team, because Lejeune and Cher could play the balls out from the back and they could carry the ball forward, and you didn't need that midfielder. And it's great that we still utilise his skills, because you can see him looking up and like feeding it. He tried to feed in Gordon really early, or was that Tonali? But it's the same thing, the same kind of play. Is he can play a long diagonal and feed people, and he did it with Joe Linton a couple of times last season, led to a goal down at West Ham.
It's bread and butter from Dasmo. Honestly, those diagonals, bread and butter.
And he's got a hell of a shot on him as well, as we all fine well know from the Champions League last season and many other instances. And you're right, I think he is, people of a certain vintage like to say Rob Lee, and that is fair enough, and absolutely all credit Rob Lee, because he was a bargain. But in the modern era, it's got to be Fabian. Like,
I agree.
What was he, 3.5 million or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? For what we got from him for £3.5 million is steal.
And if I remember, was it Bruce that said he wasn't good enough? Was it Bruce that came in and said that?
Bruce said he just didn't fancy him. He didn't fancy him, and as he, well, that says everything about Steve Bruce,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
it does. It does. Do you know what it is? I just want to look. If you look at it in isolation, the stats from last night, you know what it is. I'm just looking back over them now. Apart from obviously the stats that count, we all know that Newcastle had 12 shots at goal. Man United had 10. Just doesn't tell the story really.
Doesn't.
When you're looking at possession, Man U finished the game with a 53% overall possession, but that's
We won
obviously
early 70 at one
in the
point
first
before
half.
Manu came on. But it was, I think they showed the stat. It was like maybe the first 15, 20 minutes before they made that. So we had something ridiculous, like 12 touches in their box. We had maybe 6 or 7 shots. I think they had 1 touch in our box and like maybe less than 30% possession. So it does show that change did change the game. But like we've said time and time again on this, the game was already won. We didn't have to do anything else.
Do you think, Ian? Do you think that's probably the most aggressive first half performance you've seen from us this season? Because do you know what it is? We were at their ankles. Like I said at the very start, we wanted that. It looked like we wanted to prove a point and embarrass them to a certain degree. And if that change hadn't been made, I honestly think we could have went in 4-5-0 up in the first half there. Like,
yeah, even if we just had been a little bit more clinical with the chances, Isak chance, Tonali.
If that Tonali one goes in where he hits a post, floodgates open at that point.
Yeah, 100%. That's what that would have been 3-0 on 25 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, I think to go back to your question, I think it was the best I've seen we play, the most intense I've seen we play in the first half. Because again, start of the season we're putting in maybe 15, 20-minute performances or were good in the second half. When we had spells where we were dominant and then teams grew into it. But last night, it just looked like you said at the start of the podcast, everyone was up for it, and it just didn't look like Man U wanted to be there at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you have anything to say before we call it a day on this one?
Yeah, I will.
I will after Dasmo as well. I've got a nice little question.
Oh, brilliant. So I'm thinking, like, this is actually this game last night is a warm up for what we're going to have to do against Spurs at the weekend, and not to step on the toes of the preview, which is coming up this week. I think we're going to have to take how we played last night and break it down into even smaller chunks, because the way Spurs are, they can still hurt us when they attack, and we're going to have to learn and take the lessons from last night and have even more spells where we really put a press on and then learn to step back and then do it again.
Choose your moments.
Exactly. We're going to have to learn to do that more clinically in the game, and I think last night was the perfect warm-up opportunity.
Yeah, no, good shout.
Just on the back of the recent form that we've had, so I'm only going Premier League games here because obviously I know we're played Prem. So that's played 4, won 4, conceded none. If Pope is due, so it's a 2-part question. A, do you think the upturn in keeping clean sheets is to do with having Dubravka in goal, where they feel a little bit more confident, sort of playing around the back and things like that? So I suppose you could also include the opposition. You've played 2 teams in the relegation zone there. But to jump my question, if Pope comes back, does he get straight in the side, or do you stick with Dubravka?
I'll answer. So, first part, I don't think he's got a huge influence in regards to clean sheets. He's only been tested a couple of times, so that's credit to the rest of the lads in front of them. I do get what you're saying. Like we mentioned earlier, he's really good with his feet. We saw that loads last night, where he's very calm. He'll take his time. He's not scared to try pass, even if it's a dangerous pass. He'll try it, and it comes off most of the time. If Pope was fit, you don't change a winning team, especially when it's 4 on the bounce. You just categorically don't do it. So, for me, we don't know what's coming. We've got the January transfer window coming up in the next handful of hours. So, obviously, we've already seen the links with Dubravka going. Maybe it's already house hands. Maybe he doesn't even have that choice to make.
Yeah, I agree. And totally with how you don't change a winning formula. I think it's going to be tough for Nick Pope to be able to say he can come straight back in, because the run that we've been on. And I do agree in a sense that I think there's an element of it is that Dubravka is a little bit better with his feet, but then you can't really knock Nick Pope's shot stopping because he's so good at that.
But Dasmo, so another question, we're going to throw another question into it. Will the club think again about selling Dubravka this window?
Well, we don't know if that's happening or not, do we? That's the
Mm.
question. And I think, to be honest, based on this current form, I think he's probably played himself into another 6 months here, at least until the summer, because it's great to have that as backup.
He's your second choice goalkeeper, and he's a fantastic second choice.
He really is.
He really is. I like him. I
really
know he
is.
got a lot of stick last season, but I like Dubravka. You know,
I do,
I think
yeah.
there was a lot of harsh comments last season. Yes, he wasn't great at coming off his lines, but I think he's learned from that. This so far, we've seen it a couple of times so far in the last handful of games where he is coming out a lot quicker. So we'll go back to financial fair play, don't we, and all that crap, whether or not we need to sell him. But I would like to see Dubravka stay rather than sign Vlachodimos for God knows how many hundreds of million that we did.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
God knows what's going to happen. But boy, it's just great to end 2024 on such a high.
Perfect.
Like we didn't need that, far from it. What we did need is momentum. We've had it over the last 4 or 5 games, if you include in the cup game as well there. And right now we kind of look unbeatable. We really do. So long may it continue. Obviously, 2 huge games coming up as well. I'm confident going into them ones as well. I am confident. So let's just see what the future holds, mate. But fingers crossed that's Newcastle back. Have I said
We're
that
meant
too
again,
early?
man. Come on.
If we
Sorry.
said that too early.
No, we haven't. Nah.
Thanks, boys. Been a pleasure as always. Thanks everybody who has joined for this reaction to the Newcastle United win at Old Trafford. If you do want to do so, you can just like the video. It means a lot to us. Become a subscriber. It does cost you nothing to do that. If you do want to become a member, it is just $2.99 a month to become a member. You get early access to videos, you get extra videos, and so much more as well. Been a pleasure, boys. What you are doing?
Yep.
But wouldn't you know?
Get in.
Get in.